So, welcome to the podcast, Andy.
Thanks, Jack.
Do you want to just say who B.A.S.S are and your kind of role within it?
So, yeah, BASS. BASS is an acronym, so it stands for the Bass Anglers Sport Fishing Society. So it's a national club covering UK and Ireland. Got about 500 members
Oh,
at the
right.
moment, and I'm currently the secretary and membership secretary of BASS. So I've been doing that for about 2 years now. I've been a member of the committee for about 3 years, so I'm quite new to BASS in terms of the committee. So the society has been around since 1973.
Oh, okay.
And we
So
had
what?
a 50th anniversary recently.
So what is it that B.A.S.S, obviously, like you're all kind of keen on B.A.S S, I think it's fair to say. But what does the group actually kind of what do you do basically?
So I guess there's two sort of elements to BASS. It's firstly a fishing club, so lots of like-minded people who love fishing for bass.
Yeah.
But also it's an organisation that does some campaigning for bass conservation. So we're campaigning for an abundant, healthy stock, trying to make sure that we've got some priority for recreational angling and a sustainable bass fishery.
Yeah, because I suppose a lot of people who aren't into fishing will know them as a food fish, but obviously
Yeah,
they're a very popular fish in. I mean, arguably one of the most popular sea fish for anglers to catch, I guess, aren't they? They're pretty up there, aren't they?
yeah. I think with sea fishing, you've obviously got cod and bass. So from a sport fishing perspective, I
Yeah,
think bass
yeah.
is probably quite high in the UK. And it's the one species where there is quite a large amount of catch and release angling. Not only because it's the rules, but it's just a kind of culture that's been there with the sport fishing side.
Because what's the minimum size on bass? If you're recreationally fishing and you catch a bass, what kind of
For,
you can't just take any bass, can you?
no, 42 centimeters.
Okay.
And we're allowed to take two a day for 10 months of the year. So February and March is a close season.
Is presumably because they're spawning then? Is that right? Or
Around then, yeah, I
yeah,
think
okay.
I'm not an expert on the science, but I think we're suspicious that it's little bit later actually, quite often.
Oh, really? I guess I mean it's. I don't. I say I don't know about bass, but I know certainly with freshwater fish, they'll spawn earlier in the south of England than they will in the north of England, and I imagine it'd be the same with bass, wouldn't it? Like temperatures are going to be different. I don't know. I don't know the exact science behind it, but
Yeah, I think it's related. Yeah, water temperature and daylight hours and those combination of those factors.
yeah, it's quite nice to hear that you said that it's generally catch and release because I think from so I grew up as a coarse angler generally, but I'm really into my sea fishing in the last couple of years, and it definitely seems to be a mentality of, particularly on charter boats, if it's on the boat, it's not going back half the time. It gets
Mm,
a bop on the head, which is such a shame because obviously generally I'm a catch and release angler, so I don't unless I'm going to eat a fish that evening, I don't really take anything home. But I remember fishing from it was Poole a few years ago. I was on a charter and I had a £6 bass, my PB bass. So I was chuffed to death with that. But I don't like bass as a fish to eat particularly. And I thought, well, that fish is going to be quite old. It's an impressive fish. I'll chuck it back. And I remember the face of the skipper and the other anglers on the boat were horrified that I chucked this bass back. And I thought, well, I'd rather see it go back. But it's just that mentality I think needs a slight tweak in some circles.
yeah, I think that the mindsets are changing.
Yeah.
Certainly since the regulations came in, around 2015. Initially there was probably a bit of a negative response to it, but I think over time people are more comfortable now with having a limit on what we can take, and we may see it on other species too soon enough.
Yeah, no, which I don't think that's a bad thing either. I think it's not an unlimited resource, and I think you do have to kind of respect it. And if you want to carry on enjoying sport fishing, then you need to realize that you can't take everything all the time. You've got to put something back to fish and to propagate. So I get that. What are the main issues bass have then? You talked about like you do conservation with bass. So what are the kind of main threats with them?
I guess some of the threats have gone away, but there's a balance to be found with commercial fishing, really. So we'll always have commercial fishing, I'd
Yeah.
imagine. So I guess we've seen stocks decline over many years. I guess bass went popular table fish in the UK, so not many were landed historically in '70s and '80s. So there were a lot of bigger fish then, and what we're seeing now is certainly a reduction in the overall stock of
Yeah.
bass, but actually, a lot of people are sort of saying it's harder to catch big bass these days, and that's certainly something that seemed to happen in my own fishing, where I got I've probably been fishing for or specialising in bass fishing for about 12 years now, and you kind of increase your ability, so you get to a point where you start to get better and better, and then you have some really good results for a few years, and then it seemed to the second half of that 12 years, it's declined a little bit in terms of the bigger fish. So I've still catch lots of numbers of bass, but the bigger ones are hard to find.
Because am I right in saying that they're very slow growing, aren't they? So a
Yeah.
big bass is an old fish. So obviously, for them to get that old, they need to avoid being caught, and it's running the gauntlet of the plethora of problems that they have. So because I'm trying to remember the British record now. Is it like 20 pounds or over 20?
Maybe I should know, but yeah, it's around the £20 mark for sure.
Yeah, but I should point out as well that a bass half of that is still is a specimen, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Very
like
much.
even though 20 is like the max size, like a 10 pound bass is that's a I don't know if fish of a lifetime is the right, but an enormous fish, isn't it?
Probably is a fish of a
It
lifetime for
is.
me.
Okay, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So if someone's getting bass into their teens, that's you know, remarkable really, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Very.
Um,
I don't. I'm not sure I've had one. I haven't weighed one.
No, no. To be honest with you, I don't tend to weigh fish that I have recently bought some scales because I've started to do more barbel fishing, but I generally just sort of wing it and go, yeah, that looks impressive and go for that. But yeah, no, I get that definitely. Is it bass or sea bass?
Hey, for me, it's I don't mind. It's all the
You don't
same. I
mind?
guess
Okay, because some
formally,
people,
officially, they are European sea bass is the correct name.
yeah.
But yeah, lots of people are quite sensitive about the calling them sea bass.
It triggers people, which is really, I think there's bigger things in life to worry about the name of a fish, but yeah, I tend to find in culinary circles it's sea bass, and with anglers it's generally just bass. But then that can confuse Americans because they're like, well, hang on a minute, that's not the bass that
Mm.
we would call bass. So yeah, I guess if you want to be safe, like you say, just call it European sea bass, and you've sort of covered all the bases there, haven't you? But yeah, it's a funny one to get angry about, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, it is.
Have bass moved north at all then? Because I think historically they were seen as a southern species, but are you finding any reports from your members that they're being caught further north?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a very good fishery for bass in southwest Scotland. So I've
Really?
got some friends who do lots of fishing there. And also in Norway, I think there's a stock in Oslo Fjord of bass now.
And what? And they weren't present there a few years ago?
Um, Hard to say. I think
Yeah.
they certainly weren't caught with sort of modern fishing techniques, I guess,
Yeah. Okay.
in Scotland. They may have been there, I guess, but I guess techniques have changed and modernised.
Right. I've got you. But
But
yeah,
I think yeah, it seems to be that it's a relatively recent thing, and those fish are larger than average too. So
oh,
they
okay.
don't necessarily have large numbers of small fish.
No, but they're bigger. That's interesting because yeah, I always think of bass as being like a south coast, like Devon, Cornwall,
Mm.
ports, all that sort of stuff, and Wales as well. To be fair, but yeah, it's not something I would closely associate with Scotland. So that's interesting that they're kind of turning up in southwest Scotland
Yeah,
in good numbers as well. So there's actual fishery for them there.
but yeah, very much.
Oh,
And near the Isle of Man isn't very far away, and they've got a fantastic bass fishery on the Isle of Man. They've actually got no commercial fishing for bass around the Isle of Man, and
oh, okay.
it's one of the only places that has a slot size for recreational anglers. I think it's you can only take bass between 50 and 60 centimeters.
Oh, right. Okay. So if it's bigger than that, then you've got to put them back. And if
Yeah.
it's, yeah, is that something you would generally agree with then? Is that something you would support or?
Yeah, I think that would be a sort of
Yeah.
ultimate goal for us, actually, a
Yeah.
sport fisherman to have a slot size. We'd love to put the big ones back.
Yeah, so you have to forgive my ignorance. So is that what slot size means then? It's like if it's bigger than that, you put them back. If it's smaller than that, you put them back. It's just between that parameter, then that's the fish you can take.
Yeah, it's very
Yeah.
common over in the US actually to have that kind of measure.
They do it in I went to Norway in August to fish for halibut and didn't catch any. But they do something similar. Like if it's over I think if it's over 100 odd pounds, you put it back or something. I can't remember off the top of my head, but they had the same thing. You put the little ones back, you put the really big ones back, and there was a certain size that you take. And for me, that makes sense because obviously the big old fish, they're the ones that are going to be producing more eggs. So surely that makes more sense for them to go back rather than bopping them on the head. So I think that makes
Yeah, absolutely.
makes
I've been to Norway 8 or 9 times actually, so I'm
okay. Oh,
familiar.
great. Whereabouts did you go?
Not too far from Tromsø, so we
Okay.
fly into Tromsø, and then we usually drive a couple of hours either side of there.
Is that for halibut or just bit everything or
A bit of everything, but
yeah.
halibut's the sort of bucket list fish that everyone wants to catch when they go there.
Yeah, and
But
I did. I saw them. We got them. I got them on my camera, and I saw other people catch them. But yeah, I didn't get one. But yeah, hey ho, that's fishing, isn't it? If people want to catch, well, say if people want to eat bass, then would you say it's better to catch their own, or is it better to kind of get them from shops? Because I think a lot of bass in supermarkets will be farmed. Is that right?
yeah,
Or yeah. So is that I don't know what the farming because that's all. I don't think there's any in the UK. Is it all kind of Mediterranean where
yeah, I
they
think
farm them?
Greece and Turkey,
Right, okay.
I believe. So they come from the Mediterranean, where I guess they grow much faster. Um,
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
but yeah, I'd say for me it would probably be more sustainable to go and catch one because
Yeah,
uh, those fish are fed on fish meals, which are just small fish that are taken from the sea and
yeah, of
processed
course.
and
Yeah, I
into
didn't think of
fish
that.
food. Um, the fish have been shipped from Europe to here. The food has been probably shipped the other way beforehand. So in
Yeah, yeah, I didn't think of
terms
that.
of carbon footprint, going down the beach and catching a bass is probably a lot better than buying one.
What would be the ideal size you think for taking a bath then? If people, I don't normally focus so much on eating, eating the subjects I talk about, but I'm just curious. So if someone did want to take a bath, what is there a kind of is there a sweet spot? Would you say to take?
Uh, yeah, I think so. I think whilst the minimum size is 42 centimeters, I think bass would prefer. We encourage our members to wait till they're 48 centimeters.
Yeah, okay.
So I think I would take a bass from the shore, between 48 and 55 centimeters, that kind of size. And if I'm boat fishing offshore, then maybe something between 50 and 60 centimeters.
Just because you're likely to get bigger fish out there.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I guess I've got a family of four, all of which like a meal, so it's nice occasionally nice to take one that's exactly the right size for four
Yeah, no,
people.
no, definitely. And have you? Because I've seen bass go up rivers, and I think a lot of people don't realise this, but bass can enter freshwater
Yeah.
and complete freshwater as well. People think like, oh, they only touch them, but I mean, I've got shots of bass swimming alongside chub, roach, and other stuff like that. I don't know if you've ever had any experience seeing bass go into freshwater.
Not that far, but it's always something to look out for if you're looking for somewhere to fish for bass. If there's a small freshwater inlet, doesn't matter how small,
Yeah,
that can really attract bass.
are they home in on that? Do they?
Yeah, they seem to. I've got a few little spots near here on the Bristol Channel where there's, what we call a pill in the mud, where
Yeah.
um, and at low tide that'll be completely sort of fresh water where the rivers are or the streams are emptying in there. And as soon as the tide starts to push, the bass will go right up into that shallow sort of fresher water.
Yeah, well, I guess it's probably churning out, I don't know, worms or attracting prey, and there's got to be something there for them to eat, hasn't there? But yeah, I don't, and it tends to be weirdly as well a bigger bass as well. I don't know if it's a big bass thing, but the ones I've filmed in rivers are pretty substantial. So whether it is I'm not entirely convinced what they're doing it for, whether it's for food or whether it's to get rid of parasites. I'm not sure, but they're I mean, I've had anglers tell me they've caught them in rivers, like salmon anglers or
Yeah.
pike fishermen occasionally catch bass. So they definitely are eating in rivers as well. But yeah, it's amazing to think that you could be fishing a completely freshwater stretch, and as long as there's no barriers stopping the bass, there's nothing to stop them going a fair way inland, really.
Yeah, I don't know how long they can stay in fresh water, but they definitely do.
Yeah, I know for sure. And another kind of, I don't know if this is an old wives' tale. You might be able to dismiss this for me, but someone was telling me about how bass will kind of follow mullet around, and they'll almost sort of pretend to be a mullet, and then when there's prey, they'll dart out and have a go at them. But I'm not sure if there's any truth to that. But they're obviously more intelligent fish than people realise. But I wouldn't put it past them.
Yeah, I think they do swim together, certainly.
Yeah,
You always see bass and mullet in the same sort of places.
yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that wouldn't surprise me.
Well,
Um,
there's been a couple of times where I've been walking along like Pool Key or places like that, and you know, oh, there's a shoal of mullet, and then you look and one of them's like, oh, fucking hell, that's a big bass. Like it'll be like a bass sneaking in with them. It's oh, that's not bad actually, but you chuck a bait to it, and they just don't want to know. They're not
yeah,
daft fish at all. But it is amazing when you do see them up close. They are
so the biggest ones I've seen have been, just swimming along. I've seen some real monsters occasionally, but they're not necessarily interested in my layers.
no. What's your PB bass? Are we? Oh, you said you don't weigh your fish really, do you? Do you know? Do
Yeah,
you know your PB?
the biggest fish I've weighed is probably somewhere between 8 and 9 pounds. I don't remember exactly, but
No.
my
Okay, but that's an impressive bass.
biggest fish was one of 76 centimeters.
Oh, okay.
That's if you go by the Bass have got a conversion chart that nobody quite believes. There's a lot of variation, especially as you get above 70 centimeters. So I think the 10 pound mark is 74 centimeters, but I don't think it was a particularly heavy fish. It was a bit skinny.
Yeah, yeah. I'm always a bit wary of that because it's more of an American thing to measure fish, isn't it? And then
Yeah,
it's more of a European, British thing that we tend to
but
weigh
yeah,
them. But they
if a bass has just eaten a couple of mackerel, it could be 1 pound heavier than.
well, yeah, of course it could. Yeah, I mean, they're gonna take because I guess they'll take quite big prey. Like they're quite greedy fish, right?
Yeah, 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 very
Yeah.
much. It's quite common actually if you're playing a bass to have a much bigger one come alongside and follow that fish. And I'm not sure if it's trying to take the meal from that fish or trying to eat it. It's
Or they might actually be trying to eat the smaller bass.
yeah, potentially.
Yeah. How do you know how do bass? I mean, I guess you've seen plenty of it, but how do they hunt then? Do they? Because you always see them in a shoal. So do they work together, or are they solitary, or is it a bit of both?
Oh yeah, hard to say. I mean, they're always in shoals. So if
Yeah.
sometimes I fish some competitions and you like to catch, it's catch and release competition and you measure your fish, but you can waste quite a lot of time doing that. And you know that there's a shoal moving through when you've caught one. So when you observe them, they're always in groups. I guess the shoal size seems to be smaller. You might have
Yeah.
a small group of big fish or a lot of small fish in a shoal.
I've seen groups of them under Swanage Pier before, and I don't know. It's hard to say if they're working together, but they're all attacking the same bait ball basically. And you must think I don't know if there's cooperation necessarily, but they're all doing it together, and they'll be corralling like sand smelt or whatever the prey fish are to the top, and they're just busting up. I mean, it's amazing to watch. I've never when I've got the camera ready, but just to kind of get there on the side and watch them is incredible. Because they're a lot quicker than you think as well. Like, you look at them and bass typically kind of they're not in a hurry, and then all of a sudden they just switch on and they just go. They just have this enormous leap of energy. It is incredible to watch them go for it.
Yeah, I've probably not had chance to observe that. I suppose you
Yeah.
see, when fish are feeding quite
Yeah.
hard, you see that, and that's incredible. And particularly down around the Isle of Wight, you can go out and see just huge shoals of bass feeding in the surface.
Oh, right. Why the Isle of Wight? Why is that a hot spot then?
Ooh, that's a good question.
I'm putting you on
The,
the spot now, Andy.
so it's somewhere where I go on charter.
Oh,
So I've
okay.
got I fish from the shore. I've got my own inflatable boat. But the Isle of Wight is it's a good destination for offshore charters, and it's
Okay.
if you want to catch a really big bass, that's I'd say from the Isle of Wight to kind of the tip of Kent, or probably further around, but that part of the channel seems to produce the very biggest ones.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. I don't know why they're around there. If people want to find out more about BASS, or they might, as in the organisation, I should say, or they want to join it, what's the best way for people to do that?
Just go straight to the website, which is ukbass.com.
And they can
Um,
find all the information and
yeah,
join all that.
yeah, there's plenty of information there. We've got a private members forum too, so if you join B.A.S.S, you can join in on that and get our regular magazines.
Yeah, and find out all about bass and how to catch the odd one. Well, look, yeah, it's been great chatting, Andy. I mean, bass. They're a fish that I've not really. I've only ever caught them by accident. Generally, I've never actually been out properly fishing for bass. And one of the things I keep saying I'm going to do is go fly fishing for them. I'd love to catch one on. I wouldn't even be bothered about a big one, but I do want to go fly fishing for them at some point. So it's on my to-do list. But they are incredible. I mean, people just think of them as these big silver slabs you see in Morrison's, but as a fish in their own right, they are very beautiful and they're incredible fish that people
There
should.
are
Yeah.
there are a couple of fly fishing events actually. You could potentially go and visit or get involved in. There's one
Oh, well,
running.
that Bass actually run, do you? You actually like run some events, do you?
Uh, we support and sponsor them, so we
Oh,
provide
okay.
certificates and medals and things for them. There's one. Sorry, again, I should have had some homework, but there's one down Chichester Harbour,
Oh,
uh,
okay. Yeah, yeah.
and I think that's run by Orvis.
Ah.
And there's also one in St Mawes, and Falmouth
Yeah,
Market.
yeah, I know. I used to live in Falmouth, so yeah, yeah, okay. Oh, right, okay, yeah, that'd be good. I mean, I say I live in Nottingham now, so I'm a bit kind of devoid of bass in in this neck of the woods. But yeah, I would love to get one on the fly at some point. So I'll definitely do that. But look, yeah, thanks for coming on, Andy, and I'll put a link to the in the description, so if people do want to check out bass, they can find out more information about it.
Brilliant.